The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep rumble that seemed to shake the very foundation of the space station. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filed into the crystalline hall, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Today, however, the atmosphere was thick with tension and fear. Ambassador Lee Min-ho walked calmly through the crowd, his black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and natural armor of the other delegates. Behind him, Dr. Park Ji-woo carried a simple data pad, her face showing no emotion despite the whispered conversations that followed their passage. The humans were always quiet at these gatherings, preferring to listen rather than speak. But today, everyone knew they would have no choice but to respond. At the center of the Great Hall stood General Kethfer of the Zephyrian Empire. He was a creature built for war, standing nearly 10 feet tall with natural armor plating that gleamed like polished obsidian. His forearms each ended in claws that could tear through metal, and his red eyes burned with the fire of conquest. Behind him stood 12 of his elite warriors, each one a perfect killing machine bred for battle. The general's voice filled the chamber like thunder. Fellow delegates, we gathered today because weakness has been allowed to spread through our galaxy like a disease. For too long, we have listened to the soft words of diplomats, while our enemies grow stronger. The Zephyrian Empire will no longer tolerate this foolishness. Murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd. The Zephyrian expansion had been aggressive, but it had also been successful. 3 star systems had fallen to their forces in the past month alone, and their military seemed unstoppable. Many of the smaller species had already begun negotiations for protection treaties. But there is one species that particularly disgusts me, Kethfer continued, his burning gaze falling on the human delegation. The humans speak constantly of peace and cooperation, yet they hide behind their fancy words while others fight and die. They are cowards who have never faced real hardship. Lee Min-ho remained perfectly still, but several other delegates shifted uncomfortably. The humans had been active in galactic politics for only 50 years, but they had gained respect through their diplomatic skills and technological innovations. They had never been tested in large-scale warfare, but few species had dared to challenge them directly. I have watched these soft-skinned creatures for years, the general snarled. They talk about justice and protection, but when danger comes, they run to their committees and their lawyers. They are weak, and weakness is a luxury the galaxy can no longer afford. Dr. Park Ji-woo whispered something to Lee Min-ho, but he shook his head slightly. The time for quiet diplomacy was ending, and everyone in the chamber could feel it. I challenge the entire human race, Kethfer announced, his voice echoing off the crystal walls. Send me your strongest warrior, your greatest champion, and I will show the galaxy what happens when cowards pretend to be fighters. Even your best would not survive 5 minutes against a single Zephyrian child. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Direct challenges between species were rare, and they usually led to devastating wars. The smaller delegates began calculating which side they would need to support for their own survival. Lee Min-ho stood slowly, his movement causing the entire hall to fall silent. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but carried a weight that made even the massive general pause. You question our resolve, General Kethfer? Yeah. You believe we are cowards because we choose negotiation over conquest? The ambassador's eyes were steady, as he looked directly at the alien warrior. Very well. Give us 72 hours to respond to your challenge. General Kethfer's mandibles clicked in what served as laughter for his species. 72 hours to gather your armies? To prepare your weapons and call for help from your allies? It will make no difference. My warriors are ready for whatever pitiful force you can assemble. No armies, Lee Min-ho replied simply. No weapons. No allies, just a response. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the general seemed taken aback by the simplicity of the human response. The other delegates looked at each other in confusion, trying to understand what the humans were planning. You mock me, Kethfer, finally said, his voice dangerous. You think this is some kind of game? Think Lee Min-ho said quietly that you have made certain assumptions about humanity that you may want to reconsider. But you will have your answer in 72 hours. Dr. Park Ji-woo activated her communication device, sending a simple message back to Earth. The transmission contained only coordinates to a barren moon in neutral space and a time for the meeting. Within minutes, the response came back from Earth, and she whispered the contents to the ambassador. Lee Min-ho nodded and turned back to the general. The coordinates have been sent to your ship. Come alone or bring your entire fleet. It makes no difference to us. The Zephyrian general's eyes blazed with fury and anticipation. You will regret this arrogance, human, when your champion lies. Broken at my feet, the galaxy will see what happens to those who oppose the Zephyrian Empire. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, whispered conversations filled the air. The humans had accepted a challenge that seemed impossible to win. But something in their calm confidence suggested they knew something the rest of the galaxy did not. The underground command center beneath Seoul hummed with activity as Earth's most powerful leaders gathered around a massive holographic display. The room was filled with the quiet tension that comes before life-changing decisions. Admiral Choi So-yang paced back and forth, her uniform crisp, despite the sleepless nights she had endured since the challenge arrived. We have 3 fleets ready to deploy, announced General Park Dong-yuk, pointing to the tactical display. Zephyrians may be strong, but they've never faced our latest plasma weapons. We could end this before it truly begins. President Kim Soo-jin shook her head firmly. A military response will only prove their point. They're calling us cowards, but starting a war isn't courage. It's exactly what they expect us to do. The debate had been raging for 36 hours straight. Every option had been discussed. From diplomatic solutions to full-scale military strikes, the pressure was enormous. Earth's response would not only determine their relationship with the Zephyrian Empire, but would also set the tone for humanity's future in galactic politics. Dr. Yoon Minji, the chief scientist, pulled up star charts on her tablet, their home. World is heavily fortified. Even if we won a direct confrontation, the cost would be massive. Millions of lives on both sides. And if we lose, added Foreign Minister Lee Seo-jin, humanity becomes a footnote in galactic history. Every species will see us as weak prey. In the back corner of the room, Captain Kim Ju-won sat quietly in his simple uniform. He had been invited to these meetings because of his unique background, but he rarely spoke. While others debated strategy and politics, he simply listened and watched. His calm presence was almost invisible among the powerful figures surrounding him. The arguments continued as the hours passed. Some wanted to send their most advanced warships. Others suggested a team of Special Forces soldiers equipped with the latest technology. A few even proposed ignoring the challenge entirely and focusing on diplomatic solutions through other galactic allies. We need to show strength, insisted Admiral Choi. But we also need to be smart about it. Perhaps a small strike force with our best equipment. The general specifically challenged our strongest warrior, replied Minister Lee. He's not looking for a fleet battle. He wants to prove that even our best fighter is worthless. President Kim rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of the decision. What he wants is to humiliate us in front of the entire galaxy. If we send a large force, we look like bullies. If we send nothing, we look like cowards. The room fell silent. As everyone pondered the impossible situation, that's when Captain Kim Ju-won quietly stood up from his chair in the back of the room. His movement was so subtle that it took a moment for others to notice. I'll go, he said simply, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The room erupted in surprised voices. Admiral Choi turned to face him, her expression one of disbelief. Captain, this isn't a standard military operation. The entire galaxy will be watching. One mistake could mean war. That's exactly why it has to be me, Ju-won replied calmly. Not because I'm special, but because I'm not. General Park stepped forward, his face showing genuine concern. Ju-won, you're a good soldier, but this is a suicide mission. The Zephyrians are physically superior in every way. Their weakest warrior could probably tear apart our strongest. Tank. Physical strength isn't everything, the captain said quietly. And sometimes the best way to show strength is to show confidence. Dr. Yoon pulled up files on her computer. The Zephyrian warriors are bred for combat. They have natural armor, enhanced reflexes, and strength that's 10 times greater than any human. How can one person possibly stand against them? Jawan smiled. Slightly, because that's exactly what they don't expect. They think we're cowards who rely on technology and numbers. They want to prove that human weakness by crushing our champion. But what if our champion isn't trying to match their strength? President Kim studied the captain's face carefully. What are you really suggesting? I'm suggesting that sometimes the most powerful response is the simplest one. They expect armies, weapons, and fear. Instead, we give them one person who isn't afraid. The room fell silent again as the leaders considered his words. There was something in Jawan's quiet confidence that was both inspiring and terrifying. Within 6 hours, the decision was made. A simple message was transmitted to the Galactic Council with no elaborate explanations or threatening language. It contained only the coordinates to a barren moon in neutral space. A time for the meeting and a single signature. Captain Kim Jawan. When General Kethfer received the transmission aboard his massive warship, his laughter echoed through the command bridge. One soldier? They send one soldier. Subordinates joined in the amusement, their mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among their species. Shall we prepare the full honor guard, General? Asked his second-in-command. Yes, Kethfer, replied, his eyes burning with anticipation. 12 of our finest warriors. Will make this quick and painful. The galaxy needs to see what happens when cowards pretend to be brave. Across the galaxy, news networks buzzed with speculation and disbelief. Surely this lone captain was just the advanced scout for a larger force. The idea that Earth would send a single warrior against 12 elite alien fighters seemed impossible. But as the hours passed, and no additional ships left Earth's orbit, the reality began to sink in. Humanity had made their choice, and the galaxy would soon learn what that choice truly meant. The forgotten moon drifted silently through the void, its gray surface marked by countless craters from billions of years of cosmic bombardment. No atmosphere protected its scarred face, and no life had ever taken root in its dusty valleys. It was the perfect place for what was about to happen, too. Ships approached from opposite directions, their engines casting brief flashes of light against the endless darkness. The first was a massive Zephyrian battlecruiser, its hull black as midnight and covered with weapon ports that could destroy entire cities. The ship moved with the confident slowness of a predator that had never known defeat. The second vessel was almost embarrassingly small by comparison. The human transport looked like something a merchant might use to carry supplies between space stations. Its plain metal hull bore no weapons, no armor, and no signs of military purpose. Against the backdrop of the enormous alien warship, it seemed like a toy. The Zephyrian cruiser descended toward the moon's surface with deliberate force. Its landing created a shockwave that rippled across the barren ground, sending up clouds of ancient dust and leaving deep cracks in the rock. The display of power was intentional. A reminder of the Empire's strength. The human ship landed with barely a whisper, touching down so gently that it disturbed nothing around it. The contrast between the two arrivals told the story of two very different philosophies about power and its use. From the belly of the alien warship, a boarding ramp lowered with mechanical precision. The sound of marching feet echoed across the airless surface as 12 figures emerged in perfect formation. Each Zephyrian warrior stood over 8 feet tall, their bodies encased in armor that seemed to be part of their natural skin. The plates gleamed like polished obsidian, and energy weapons hummed at their sides. General Kethfer emerged last, his massive frame dwarfing even his elite guards. His 4 arms moved with predatory grace, and his burning red eyes swept the moon's surface with satisfaction. This would be over quickly, and the galaxy would finally understand the price of challenging the Zephyrian Empire. The human transport's simple. Door slid open with a quiet hiss. Captain Kim Ju-won stepped onto the moon's surface wearing nothing but standard military fatigues and sturdy boots. He carried no weapons, no protective gear, and no communication equipment beyond a simple earpiece. His dark hair was neatly combed and his uniform was perfectly pressed. as if he were reporting for a routine duty assignment. The visual contrast was almost comical. 12 towering alien warriors in advanced battle armor faced a single human who looked like he might be more comfortable behind a desk than on a battlefield. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the confrontation through transmitted feeds, many wondering if this was some kind of elaborate suicide. "This is your champion?" General Kethber's voice carried across the vacuum through their communication systems, his tone dripping with disdain. "This ordinary little creature is humanity's answer to my challenge." Jawan looked up at the massive alien general with the same calm expression he might wear while reviewing his morning reports. "General, your warriors look very impressive. This should be educational for everyone watching." The alien general's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. "Educational indeed? You will learn what happens when cowards pretend to be warriors. My guards will teach you the price of human arrogance." "I appreciate the lesson," Juan replied politely, rolling his shoulders to loosen them like an athlete preparing for exercise. "I'll need about 10 minutes to complete the demonstration. Please don't interfere until I'm finished." "Ack!" Kethfer gestured broadly to his 12 elite warriors, who began spreading out in a wide circle around the lone human. 10 minutes? You won't need half that time to die. My warriors have trained their entire lives for combat. They have never known defeat. I'm sure they're very skilled," Joan acknowledged, his tone remaining respectful. Many forms. The 12 Zephyrian guards activated their energy weapons, filling the air with a low humming sound that spoke of barely contained power. Their armor systems engaged, creating shimmering force fields around their bodies. Each warrior was a perfect killing machine, bred and trained for nothing but victory in battle. Jawan stood quietly in the center of their circle, his hands empty and relaxed at his sides. He showed no fear, no tension, no sign that he understood the impossibility of his situation. To the watching galaxy, he looked like a man who had either completely lost his mind or knew something that no one else did. "Begin when you're ready," the captain said simply, his voice carrying clearly through the communication system. "I don't want to keep everyone waiting." General Kethver's eyes burned with anticipation as he gave the signal. The galaxy held its breath as the confrontation finally began. What they were about to witness would change everything they thought they knew about humanity and the nature of true strength. The first warrior stepped forward, confident in his superior size and advanced weaponry. What happened next would be remembered for generations as the moment when the galaxy learned that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The first Zephyrian warrior stepped forward with complete confidence, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the moon's dusty surface. His energy weapon charged with a high-pitched whine that cut through the silence like a blade. This would be quick and brutal, exactly as his training had taught him. Captain Kim Jellin stood perfectly still, watching the approaching giant with the calm attention of someone observing an interesting puzzle. His hands remained at his sides and his breathing was slow and steady. To the billions watching across the galaxy, he looked like a man about to be crushed by forces beyond his control. The warrior's charge was devastating. His armored feet cracked the moon's surface with each step, and his weapon fired bolts of energy that could melt through starship hulls. The attack was perfectly executed, a textbook example of Zephyrian combat doctrine. What happened next defied every law of physics that the watching galaxy understood. Juan moved with impossible grace, his body flowing to one side like water. Around a stone, energy bolts passed harmlessly through empty air as his hand shot out with surgical precision. Striking a tiny gap in the warrior's armor just below the neck, the massive alien crumpled to the ground instantly, his nervous system overwhelmed by the perfectly placed strike. His weapons clattered uselessly on the rock as his body went limp. The entire sequence had taken less than 3 seconds. General Kethfer's mandibles clicked in confusion. Impossible. Get up, warrior. This is not over. But the fallen Zephyrian remained motionless, breathing but completely unconscious. Juan stepped back calmly, dusting off his hands as if he had just completed a simple maintenance task. The second warrior approached with more caution, his weapons ready, but his movements careful. He'd seen what happened to his companion and was determined not to make the same mistake. His armor's defensive systems activated, creating a shimmering energy shield around his body. It made no difference. Jawan moved like a dancer, his body flowing through attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. His strikes were economical and precise, each one targeting specific pressure points that his opponent didn't even know existed. The warrior's superior strength became meaningless when his own momentum was turned against him. "You see," Juan said conversationally, as the second warrior joined his companion on the ground, "humans don't fight because we're physically superior. We fight because we choose to study, to learn, to perfect ourselves." The third warrior tried a different approach, using his weapons to create a wall of energy that should have been impossible to penetrate. Juan simply walked through it, his movements so fluid that the energy beams seemed to bend around him. His counterattack was swift and final, leaving another elite guard unconscious on the moon's surface. "Every human child learns dozens of fighting styles," he continued, his tone as casual as if he were discussing the weather. "Not because we're violent, but because we understand that peace requires the ability to defend it." The fourth and fifth warriors decided to attack together, their coordination perfect after years of training. They moved like a single organism, their weapons creating overlapping fields of deadly energy. Surely no single being could withstand such an assault. Gelwan flowed between them like smoke, his movements so smooth that he seemed to be in two places at once. His hands struck with the precision of a surgeon and the power of a sledgehammer. Both warriors fell within seconds. Their advanced armor and superior strength useless against technique perfected over a lifetime of study. The remaining 7 warriors hesitated, their confidence shaken for the first time in their lives. They had been bred for combat, trained from birth to be perfect killing machines. Yet this ordinary human was dismantling them with embarrassing ease. "This is impossible," whispered one of the warriors over their private communication channel. "No single being should be able to do this." General Kethfer's voice roared across the communication system. "Attack together. All of you. Overwhelm him with numbers." The remaining warriors charged as one, their weapons creating a storm of energy that lit up the moon's surface like a miniature sun. The coordinated assault was beautiful in its deadly precision, a perfect example of Zephyrian military doctrine. Jawan moved through the chaos like a ghost, his body seemingly untouched by the devastating attacks swirling around him. His counterstrikes were swift and surgical, each one disabling a warrior with minimal effort. He fought not with anger or desperation, but with the calm focus of someone who had spent decades mastering his craft. "We study your anatomy," he explained, as another warrior fell. "Your fighting styles, your weaknesses. We prepare for every possibility, because preparation is the foundation of true strength." One by one, the elite guards fell, until only General Kethfer remained standing. The alien general stared in horror at his unconscious warriors, his mind struggling to process what he had witnessed. In exactly 10 minutes, his pride and joy had been reduced to sleeping figures scattered across. The moon's surface, Captain Kim Juan stood calmly in the center of the battlefield, not even breathing heavily. His uniform was still perfectly pressed, and his expression remained as calm as when he had first stepped off his transport. The demonstration was complete. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The silence that followed was deeper than the vacuum of space itself. Across the galaxy, billions of beings stared at their screens in complete disbelief. Captain Kim Jawan stood calmly in the center of what had once been an elite fighting force, surrounded by 12 unconscious Zephyrian warriors. His breathing was steady, his uniform barely wrinkled, and his expression remained as peaceful as if he had just finished a morning walk. "General," Kethfer's massive form trembled as he tried to process what he had witnessed. His voice, when it finally came through the communication system, was barely a whisper. "What are you? Some kind of enhanced super soldier? A cyborg created in secret laboratories?" Jawan looked up at the towering alien general with genuine curiosity. "Why would you think that?" he asked, beginning to unbutton his military jacket. "I'm just a regular person." No regular person could do what you just did, Kethfer insisted, his voice growing stronger. You must have cybernetic implants, genetic modifications, some kind of hidden technology that makes this possible. The captain removed his jacket completely, revealing nothing but an ordinary human torso. His arms showed no signs of mechanical enhancement, no scars from surgical procedures, no glowing indicators of advanced technology. His skin was slightly tanned from spending time outdoors, and there was a small scar on his left shoulder from a childhood accident. I'm a police officer. From Busan, Juan said simply, folding his jacket neatly. I work the night shift mostly, helping people with their problems. On weekends, I teach martial arts to children at the community center. I have a wife named Song Hyeri who works as a nurse, and a daughter who's learning to play piano. She's not very good yet, but she practices every day. The revelation hit the galactic community like a shockwave. News anchors across hundreds of worlds struggled to find words to describe what they had witnessed. The idea that an ordinary human could defeat an elite alien fighting force seemed to violate every natural law they understood. Ambassador Lee Minho's voice came through the communication channel, calm and clear. General Kethfer, you called us cowards, but you misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. We don't send armies because we don't need to. One warrior is enough, and we have billions of them. Every human has the potential to become what Captain Kim represents. Dr. Park Ji-woo added, her voice filled with quiet pride. Not through conquest or domination, but through discipline, study, and the choice to protect others. Stared at the human captain with new understanding dawning in his burning red eyes. You're telling me that this is normal for your species? That any human could do what he just did? With enough training and dedication? Yes, Joanne replied honestly. I'm not special. I just chose to spend my life learning. Every human child studies multiple fighting styles, not because we're violent, but because we believe knowledge is the foundation of peace. The captain walked over to one of the fallen warriors and gently helped him to his feet. Zephyrian was still groggy, but unharmed, his natural healing abilities already working to restore his consciousness. Your warriors fought bravely, Jawan told the general. They're skilled and strong, but they relied only on their natural gifts. While you studied, Kethfer said slowly, beginning to understand. While I studied, Jawan confirmed. Your anatomy, your fighting styles, your weapons, your culture. I prepared for every possibility because that's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, we improve. The alien general looked around at his slowly recovering warriors, seeing them in a new light. And there are billions of humans like you, 5 billion. At last count, Juan said with a slight smile. Teachers, doctors, farmers, engineers, artists, all of them capable of what you just saw, if the need arose. The implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire had built their reputation on military might and physical superiority. The idea that an entire species could match their elite warriors through simple dedication and training challenged everything they believed about power. Your empire can continue its expansion if you choose, Jawan said, his tone remaining friendly. But carrying a weight that made the general's armor plates rattle. But understand that every world you threaten, every species you intimidate, has Earth's protection. And Earth has 5 billion people like me. The captain walked back to his transport, pausing only to wave goodbye to the recovering warriors. Take care of yourselves, he called out. And remember that strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how much you're willing to learn. As the simple human transport lifted off from the moon's surface, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The ship disappeared into the void, carrying its ordinary passenger back to his extraordinary, ordinary life. General Kethfer stood alone on the barren moon, surrounded by his warriors who were slowly returning to consciousness. The Zephyrian Empire would reconsider their aggressive expansion, not out of fear, but out of respect for a species that had just redefined what it meant to be strong. Across the galaxy, the quiet species that had been living among them all along had finally revealed their true nature. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their numbers or technology, but in their unlimited capacity for individual excellence achieved. Through simple dedication and the choice to never stop learning,